Hi, I'm Doni. I'm Trinidadian Costa Rican.
Hi, I'm Rhonda. I'm Afro-Honduran. And we are your co-hosts for Negra como soy.
Or I am Afro-Latina. Every Tuesday, we'll bring you the insights, perspectives, and history of the African diaspora in Latin America.
To educate, enlighten, and hopefully create a sense of belonging for you, our listeners and viewers.
Negra como soy is brought to you by Cultures, the global multicultural magazine. Cultures celebrates cross-cultural identity because everyone should feel like they matter. ¿Qué tal, Rhonda? ¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tenemos?
Romita, you can see we have a good time every time we start. Check in,
love
see
it.
how each other is. Man, I love that look, Dr. Rhonda. Dr. Rhonda always, when I was younger, I used to wear head wraps, and I had this great head wrap I would wear all the time. And I was married for a long time. And one day, my husband was like, "Do you have to wear those?" I know, right? I know, what's your face? I just remembered that story because I was admiring yours, and I haven't worn it since. I was like,
Oh,
"You like my head?"
time to bring it back.
You got to bring it back.
No, I have to learn. I need to learn how to do it again. So anyway, yes, I was thinking the other day because you have to get the right fabric, right? So I need to get that, but it would be perfect to wear where Romita is. So we're gonna Romita and tell you a little bit about where she is and what we're gonna talk about today, which is Disney's Encanto. Romita Bulchandani is someone that I am thrilled to call my friend now. We've gotten to know each other. We met in Peru, and she is now in Colombia, which I was for 3 months last year, and we'll be going back to visit. So I'm excited to talk to her. So it's perfect that we're speaking about Disney's Encanto because Romita used to work for Disney and she knows how they develop these stories. So this perspective, in addition to now also being in Colombia, is going to really give you some insight into this production. Now, Romita is the founder and chief glitter officer of Glitter for the Soul. And we're going to take a minute for her to tell us a little bit about that and how she helps to change people's lives, which I think also will fit into our discussion about Encanto. So, welcome, Romita.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. What I do, and I work in the mental health space, and what I do fits with this movie. I'm going to say so surprisingly, because I wasn't expecting mental health to be a feature or a kind of the main event of Encanto, and we'll get into that later. But what I do is I help people from all over, and the three things that we work on, problems that we solve, is freedom. We all want to be free of something, those suppressed emotions, those obligations that we have been forced to have or we didn't sign up for, but we have anyways in our lives. Self-love. We're not conditioned to know how to love ourselves. We're not taught to how to love ourselves. And in clarity is the other piece too, is getting clear and understanding, like a lot of us want change, especially from the past 2 years that this entire world has been through. We've been through a lot of shifts and roller coasters, and we want change. We've been pushed into change, but then we don't know where to go or how to get it. So I work with clients all over to figure out those three problems and transform.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it. What do you think, Dr. Rhonda?
I'm loving the mental health aspect. As you know, I'm also a health professional, and my focus in my practice is emotional health. And so I definitely resonate with the storytelling in Encanto that brought that up. I connected with it immediately, and I'm just loving the work that you're doing with glitter, because I think sparkles are really important when you're talking about mental health and making people come to a space where they love themselves and take care of themselves.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. So, Romita, I would love to get your perspective from a Disney lens on this movie and how it was developed. One of the things you and I talked about when we first discussed it, I also can't wait to hear about your transformation, like your thought about the movie before, and then you rewatched it after you went to Colombia, and then your thought afterward. But looking from the Disney lens and that transformation, what was your opinion before, and what is your opinion now?
So when I first watched it, I was in Spain, and my photographer was actually Colombian. I did a photo shoot, and she did not like the movie. So I went back, I went and watched it. I was like, I'm going to go see this movie. And every Disney movie, being immersed, I've worked for Disney for 9 years and working with the storylines and being part of the process, from the creative process of bringing those stories to lives in the parks and the resorts and to the guests and the customers that would come to Disney. We would really get to know all the characters. But one thing that Disney had in the theme was there's always a villain, there's always a plot, there's always like this dramatic scene along with the musical with the villain and the hero, and you have this kind of like this format. And when I first watched the Encanto, I was like, where's the format? Like, we've been doing the format for years. It was in the last movie. What happened? And so I was a little taken back by it. And I started doing more research on it because I'm like, what? Because Disney, I can't, like, when I opened the Animal Kingdom Lodge Villas, and I remember when we were opening that resort, the details that they put into the molding, to the outlets, to the actual paintings, to the artwork, to the grand things that you saw from the outside, to the behind the scenes, like maybe it was a paint color that you wouldn't even think anything of as a guest. Disney really, like, they went out and there was a mission, there was a meaning, there was a purpose behind every ounce of everything within that building. So just like they do for the parks and the resorts, the movies also have lots of hidden messages and a lot of history behind it. So I started looking at it, and for me, this movie, I wasn't prepared for a company like Disney to make a movie. To me, it was on mental health. And the villain was suppressed emotions that we hold on to from the pressures and obligations of family and society. That was the villain. The villain was our minds and our perceptions. And I just wasn't prepared for that type of storyline coming from Disney, but I am so proud of them for putting out this movie and putting this out there, and then also using Colombia as a setting. And Colombia is known for the drugs and the violence. Usually, before I even came here, I can't tell you how many people warned me. And you get here, and the people are so beautiful. It's so green, and it's so lush, and it's so diverse, and it's just so beautiful. And here you have a movie that represents probably one of the first, I don't know, I don't watch a lot of movies, but I'm going to say first movie that represents Colombia in such a magical, beautiful way, where it's happy and it's love, and it talks about family dynamics that my client, who I just unpacked this movie with, surprisingly, it wasn't the plan, but she's like, can we talk about Encanto? I cried. And it's just like, she's a white woman in America and two family, kids of two. And she related to that, coming from a strong Christian household. And she's like, that abuela, she's like my great grandmother. She reminded me of her. And I'm Luisa. I feel like Luisa. And we went through and we unpacked this movie. And then talking to the Colombians here, they feel so proud that they feel seen and feel heard from the biggest entertainment company of the world. You go in the grocery stores, you go in the banks, all you see is Encanto, Encanto, Encanto. There's the music, there's the backdrops. It's like the whole, like, everywhere you go, you see it. Everyone's talking about it. I'm hearing to the chitter chatter. I can't listen. I don't understand a lot of the Spanish, but I can hear them say, when I'm like, Encanto, my ears perk up. I'm like, ooh, what are they saying? I'm going to try to piece the Spanish together. It's just, it's got people talking from all diversities about mental health. And the thing about it is we all are feeling the same things, just maybe in different ways, but the emotions are similar. And we all felt alone. And all of a sudden, Disney brings out this movie at perfect timing, I would say, coming from a pandemic. And then also, lots of things have happened from a racial perspective, too. In the past couple of years, we've all been woke in different ways. And now we're being, we're talking about things in a different way. And I think it's bringing up a lot of great conversations. And I'm here for it. I am here for all of it.
We agree. We agree. We agree. You know, Dr. Rhonda, did you have a question?
I did not have a question. I had a comment, but go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Make your comment.
Oh, I was just thinking as you were sharing that I saw the villain right away from my own experience and upbringing. So I saw the abuela as the villain, not as
Mm.
not as an outright like this bad thing, but just in being able to relate to her posture in the family, and the fact that because of her posture, people's emotions were oppressed. That's something that I've experienced, that my cousins have experienced, my siblings, we all talked about with our grandmother, and my siblings and I and my kids talk about with my mother at times too. You know, that there's this expectation that is placed, and there's this presentation to the community that does not match what happens inside the home. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
the way that you feel. And, you know, we had all of the jokes about, you know, she definitely wouldn't have apologized like that lady apologized in the movie. And
My abuela wouldn't apologize either.
there would be no apology. And so there, I think that the emotional attacks that were happening from that villain, if I'm seeing it as, you know, I see it as the abuela being the villain, are far more traumatizing than, you know, a Gaston trying to um, throw someone off of the bridge, or, you know, any of those other Disney movies. I think the trauma that is generationally lasting
Yes.
is far more impactful in that film.
You know, it's interesting
Hmm.
that you say that, Dr. Rhonda. Two things. One, on our last episode, our second episode, we talked about um, our upbringing and how that was, and we talked about how society tries to put you into this, you know, this neat little box that people can understand and relate to because they can't think outside of what they've been told to be necessarily, right? And if a story is different than theirs, they have to try to fold that story into the same box because it's too difficult to try to conceptualize something that's completely different. Like, we got to throw this box away and start over. Oh, I don't know how to do that. But secondly, it was
Hmm.
interesting what you just said, Dr. Rhonda. Um, when if you think about generational impact and trauma and that type of thing, I also just had this same conversation about racism. So people think of racism as, you know, the burning crosses and the outright outrageous
Hmm.
things that happen that you can see and fight against. But what I think is way more insidious is those little tiny comments, those hints that you drop about people and in situations that then just get
Yeah.
folded into who you are, no matter who you are, whether you're a person of color or a person from the majority. And then you act on those and you subconsciously don't realize you're re traumatizing people or you have certain opinions based on these little things that have been fed into you, sometimes purposefully, sometimes not purposefully. To me, that's the insidious part of racism. But yeah, it's interesting to see in this, to bring it full circle to Encanto, you know, this is what my family looks like, right? From the whitest white to the darkest dark, and all sizes and shapes, and this is my family, right? And you know, we were talking about I we're gonna put up on the screen all these social media comments from people relating to so many people, so many different people in the movie. So one of the main ones, of course, is Luisa. You know, of seeing femininity in a way that you can be strong and still be beautiful. But also, some of the narrative and some of the conversations are about when that is all you're seen for, and when you lose that, which is one of our episodes that we just had as well, our third episode of someone who is Afro-Latina and then found out from an ancestry test that she wasn't, right? Like, what happens when you lose your identity in a second? Do you know who you are, and can you be yourself without having the box that you've been put into?
Mhm.
You know, I think this movie impacts so much.
Mhm.
So, Romita, so this client just wanted to talk about Encanto, which I find very interesting. Is it because she knew you were from Disney, or just out of the blue she wanted to speak about it?
I don't think she and I have ever talked about my time at Disney, actually. So I'm not even sure. It didn't come up. We've been working a lot on her figuring out her identity. And she related so much to Louisa. She says, I watched it with the kids, and then we watched it again, just me and my husband, and I literally broke down and cried for the last hour of the movie.
Mm.
And she was surprised by her reaction to the movie. And it's something that she's never really reflected on. So seeing that, and in Disney movies, a lot of times I think the unspoken myth is that it's for kids, right? But I think adults probably watch Disney movies just as much as the kids, because I've seen lots of reviews where the parents are watching the movie when the kids are at school, and they've got Encanto playing in the background as they're doing. I even have Disney movies playing. Like, I subscribe to the Disney Channel as well, and like, we use Disney movies. They're an educational feature, and they're one of those things that we use as a teaching tool for children. I know with my nieces and nephew in Spain, like, we use Disney movies as a teaching mechanism to teach them. And so Disney is big. Disney is a big, and for them to bring out this whole with mental health was just, I'm still like blown away with it. I cry every time I watch the movie now, like literally cry, because it gets me, because a lot of the family dynamics are very similar to my family. My abuela is just like the abuela here in Encanto. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, it's just amazing. But I've noticed that from country to country I go to, when I study mental health and I look at what it looks like, a lot of our family dynamics are very similar, regardless if you're American, Colombian, Indian, Chinese, Japanese. Like, there's a lot of overlap in the way our family dynamics are. And then the modern lifestyle, you still have that. The generational trauma that comes from all of that is still happening. We're still living it, and it's just showing up in different forms and formats. I think Bruno, like, we don't talk about Bruno. That song will probably be stuck in my head for a long time.
What did it just surpass? It just surpassed "Let It Go" as
Yes.
the best
How
Disney song
how
or most
crazy is
famous.
that?
Yeah, I
Yeah, that's so
mean
crazy.
that says a
And
lot. That says a lot.
it really does. And I think about Bruno as, his everyone's got this gift, right? And Bruno's is psychology, right? It's like, not psychology, but he's psychic powers. And he basically goes around, he's speaking the truth. He's telling whatever he sees, he's speaking his truth. But people aren't liking it. So because they don't like what he wants to say or what he's saying, they've shut him out. And he's been shunned from the community and from his family, because he spoke the truth. But how many of us have heard that? How many of us have felt that in some way or shape or form, where we have spoken our truth and then we've been shamed for it? And so I see that in the gifts that and like Isabella, the flowers, I love that the pretty girl and the perfect sister was the darkest skin tone of the sisters. I thought that was
Wait, no,
really
was
beautiful.
she?
Yeah,
She
Wait, no,
was.
no, no.
she was.
Was.
I will have to
Yeah.
look again because you know
Yes.
what's funny about
She's
us
darker
saying
than
this in my
Luisa.
head. She is. Wait,
She's darker
Luisa
than
was
Luisa and
someone,
Mirabel.
but Mirabel. She's darker than Mirabel.
Yeah, she was
I gotta
darker than
look it up.
Mirabelle.
I gotta look it up.
Yeah, like how, like the little subtle things, but like they're big. And you see that, and it's like, like, to be able to see the darkest girl is the prettiest and the most perfect. And I think the movie played with our perceptions. What we do in real life, we judge, right? We see something, we judge books by its cover, and we learn the perception. We think Isabella is so happy and she's perfect and she's got flowers, and then towards the end of the movie we realize she's giving up everything just to please her family, and she's not happy. And behind closed doors, she's suffering inside. And the same thing with Luisa. You see that under the surface. That whole song, like, it spoke to me. You see that, and you're like, oh, so you're not all put together. And
It's
it makes us look behind the curtain.
well, it's nice too because to that same point, Mirabel, which I did look it up, and you're right. I don't. You know what? I'm ashamed to say this. In my head, Luisa was super light. I don't know what I need to research inside of why that happened, but that's yeah. but um but it's so the darker characters, maybe it's because the darker characters, like the little boy, that little boy.
So cute.
Antonio.
And yes, and then
He's
our
adorable.
cousin with the curly hair. Oh, I just love her. But okay, so back to Mirabel. I think it's interesting what you say about Luisa and the pretty sister as well, because Mirabel now had the freedom to be herself because she didn't quote
Hmm.
unquote get her gift. But your gift is being you, right? And so she had the biggest gift of all. And of course, she
Yeah.
ended up saving the day. But yeah, all of that, what you just said, and everything we talk about with society and how society feels and how we react to that. I just watched a TED Talk last night or this morning because I couldn't sleep. Probably because I was so excited to talk to you. um, and it was about how we're ourselves, our true selves, until age 7, and then we
Hmm.
start conforming to what society thinks. So, as one example, they had said, "Oh, if you talk to little boys about age 4, and you say who's the strongest, and they're all like, I'm the strongest, I'm the strongest of it." And then if you go to little boys age 7, you say the same thing, "Who's the strongest?" And they'll all point. Little Johnny is the strongest. Oh,
Wow.
Tommy is the funny one, and Greg is the one who gets in trouble all the time.
Yeah.
And so Esteban is the one that chases the girl. Whatever, these are I'm making all this up. I shouldn't have said that about Esteban. That felt like a stereotype. But I was trying to give non-Western names, and then I've made something bad out of it. Anyway, so I found that interesting that she was saying that's our goal on Earth, is to be who we truly are, and that we are that way until 7, and it kind of gets pushed out of us, and then
Hmm.
the other people who typically are themselves, according to this TED Talk, are people who are older. The woman giving the talk was Scottish, and she called them the wrinklies. And so she's like, but you get to be yourself because you don't care anymore what people think. And you say, I don't
Hmm.
like this, I don't like that. And by the way, I don't like you, and how people are no longer afraid to just say
Hmm.
what they feel and how it is. And when you're a child, you also feel that way. So, who, unbeknownst to Mirabelle, she was able to be herself because people had no expectation of her, right?
Yeah. I wonder which character you all resonate with. I want to share mine, but I want to preface with coming off of what you just said, Donnie, that I'm always this anomaly to the people that know me because I've never lost that ability to just be myself. And so I'm not afraid at all to reinvent myself, like to be doing one thing and then suddenly being something different. um like I've had so many different jobs. I was in a funk band. I don't know if you know that about me, Donnie.
Ooh.
I don't. I
I've been in corrections, military. Now I'm a healer. I'm a dancer, martial artist. I've done all of these different things because
Wow.
I can, and if I feel like it, then I do it. But it just constantly has people like, I don't know what to expect from you. You know what I mean? Like people say that all the time. I never, every time I feel like I know who you are, you do something else, and then I have no idea. And
Wow.
people are bothered. Like they say it in a way that they're smiling, but you can also get this sense that they're bothered by the
Yes.
fact that they can't place me in a
Unsettling.
new place, right?
Yeah.
But I would like to say that I most resonate with Isabella, and it has nothing to do with like the looks factor, but the idea that she's this, perfect, and she brings joy everywhere, and she's just this beauty, and I'm seeing that beyond her physical, beauty as in bringing goodness and making people feel good, right? And so because of the way that I speak, and because I've always had kind of this quiet nature, people expect me to be this certain way, even though I've given plenty of examples of how I
Hmm.
exit the box that they try and have me in. There's still this expectation that I know a lot, so I'm the smart one. I'm kind, so I'm always helping people. And so I must have everything together. I must be happy. Donnie and I went to this business retreat and we're supposed to be giving advice to each other at the table. And every time I give my share, people are like, well, I don't have any advice for you. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like, no, I'm struggling. Like my business is not doing great. I need help too. And they're like, oh, really? It's not. You sound like you have everything together, you know? And so I didn't realize that I resonated with Isabella until she started pulling up cactuses and everything. And I was like, that's me. Like people expect just all pretty and goodness, but sometimes I put out some stuff that's just like rough and sketchy and, don't touch it because you
A
might
little prickly. Okay, I'm
exactly.
glad to
And
know
we
this
love
about you.
that. We love that.
Well, that's interesting. I resonate with Dolores because she has, well, not because she was in
Mm,
everybody's business.
yes.
No, that's not why. Because she had the curly hair. I was happy to have a character. I mean, I know that Mirabelle had curly hair too, but Dolores had different curly hair, right? Like,
Mhm.
so that's why I resonate with Dolores. And also, um, I need to watch the movie again. We watched it the first day it came out. We took our niece and nephew, which, by the way, I'll talk to your what you said about adults watching Disney movies. Well, actually, I'll just put it in here. When is it The Princess and the Frog? What was the one
Oh
with?
yes.
Because I
In
took
New
my
Orleans.
niece. What'd you say?
In New Orleans?
Yes, that was it called Princess and the Frog? What was it called?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Princess and the
Um,
Frog.
I took my niece to that and I was so excited. I remember she was tired. She was about 5 years old. And she was so uninterested. And I'm like, but it's a brown Disney princess. I was like, how are you so, why do you want to play? Like, watch the screen. I was so, that's when I realized how invested I was into this brown Disney princess.
Mhm. It
Anyway,
was your childhood self excited, I think.
shoot, it was my adult self excited.
That's
The child, the adult, the wrinkly, all of them were excited at the same time. But anyway, so for Dolores, I really resonated with her curly hair, and I loved how it was. And I I think if I remember correctly, because like I said, we saw it the first day it came out, so it's been a little bit since I saw it. I if I remember correctly, she got like a really quality man was interested in her, right? Do I remember
Mhm.
that correctly?
Yep.
So that's what resonated with me because people discount you. They think, you can come around because you're not going to be, you're the brown one, you have that crazy hair, all that. I feel fine. Like my man will be fine about around you. And then they realize, oh no, he's chasing you. Go away. I don't want you here. I didn't expect him to like you. And the point with that is that, and back to what you said about beauty too, beauty comes from inside. So whatever you think of what someone looks like on the outside, or if you're better than them or not, that's not necessarily in the end what resonates with quality people, right? So
Hmm.
anyway, but her curly hair and the fact that she was triumphant is why she resonated with me. What about you, Ramita?
Um, Maribel, the main character, she is the one that I connected with the most because I always felt like I didn't have the gifts that all my other cousins. We have a very large family, so I have about 21 immediate cousins. Like, if I were to get married, I would have like 121 immediate family members show up, and they're all like immediate. Like, you can't discount any of them. They're huge. But I was constantly compared to each one of them. Well, so and so is going to be a doctor, so if you're not getting married, what are you going to do? And I was overweight growing up, and I didn't really know what I really wanted. I didn't. I had to fight to go to college because in my family they were like, "Well, we need to get you prepped for marriage after high school." It wasn't, I'm sitting here living in North Carolina. This is what 2000, so I'm thinking like, do we still follow those traditions? Like, I wasn't sure. I was questioning that. And it's like something that I like from a young child. I think about Antonio and even Maribel when she didn't get her gift, but I don't know how old she was. It looked like maybe 4. They looked really like 4 years old when they were going to the candle for the door.
They
I
came
felt
like
like they looked
6 or
old,
7.
like young.
I
Huh?
think it was
7?
6 or 7, if I
6 years
remember
coming of age, but they said coming of age, which whatever that
Ooh,
was
6 or 7. Did you
felt,
get that 6 or 7 when you think back to that TED talk about
yeah,
7? And that's the
but
box
that's
that you
still
put
a
on.
lot.
Wow.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure to put on a kid. That,
But think
that's a
about
6
that
or
TED
7.
talk though. At age 7, that's when they start to know this is how you're supposed to be. I find that
Hmm.
interesting. I wonder, as you talk about Disney and the details, I wonder if that was on purpose.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Like it seems like, but and even at 7, when you're like, okay, now you know where you're the box you're supposed to fit in, and still navigating that, it's still a lot of pressure. Like I remember as a kid, I was trying, like they were teaching me, like when you go to people's houses, you have to help clean up, you have to be like, you have to have these responsibilities that are female oriented, like you need to learn how to like help with the cooking and help with this, and I'm like, I just want to play, like I don't want to make a vegetable tray. Like I know I'm good at it now because y'all forced me to be good at it, but I don't want to make them anymore. Like they would say like go find out how to make a basket out of a tomato. Like they would like let's make it, like I would be taught to do these kinds of things, and that wasn't anything that I was interested in. And so like growing up, I am 40 now. I'm not married. I don't have kids, and there's still a lot of my aunts and uncles and even cousins still talk about it. Some of the cousins, they tell me like, yeah, they had a whole discussion about you. They feel like, you're doing all this traveling and you should still, it's so sad that you never got married. And this was conversations apparently that happened 6 months ago. And
your life
you
is
like,
Meanwhile, you're living your best life that so
I
many
know
people wish they had.
it's
exactly.
like
I
her life is
literally,
over, like she never got married, as though it's the end. Like
Oh, poor
you've
thing,
had
right?
that time now.
You know what it is? We're just
I was
sad that you're
talking
not
to
miserable.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and I did a facial wax, and she's like, "So you don't have you're not married? You don't have kids? Not any kids?" I was like, "No, not any kids. Like I don't have a half a kid either. Like I have no kids. I don't know what to tell you." And because I always tell people I'm happily homeless, I travel the world. I just go from country to country. I live out of my suitcase, and I love it. It's the best life I could ever dream for myself. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if anyone else enjoys my life because it's my life and it's up for me to love it. And I mean, it's taken my family time to get through, but I feel like Maribel, I never had a gift. I never had that gift that all my other cousins had, that they had this knack of completing the tradition and completing the family and continuing that those traditional rituals. I just never had that. So I felt like the black sheep in a way and
And
shunned
like
a lot of times.
Maribel, your life was intended to be bigger. Your life was intended to create change and to bring joy to people. To
Yeah.
on some level, I don't want to say be a savior. That sounds like a lot to put on somebody's shoulders, but yeah, to shine light. That
No, it is. It is. Yeah, because now I have the biggest gift of all is I'm a healer. And the same way the glitter comes out when she touched the door, like I feel like that's what I do. I leave glitter trails along the way. It's so funny. I will someone else just sent me like last week. I haven't talked to this person in probably almost a year. And he's like, I just saw this video of people putting glitter in their paint and further like he just like sends me like they see something and they're like Romita, and they want to send it my way, and so I've made impact. So I feel like I have the biggest gift is I'm able to give back in a way that I wouldn't have if I would have followed the traditions and followed against my own inner voice.
So I'm sad to say that we're coming to a close, but I'll close with
No.
I know, right? I'll close with one question, unless you have one, Dr. Rhonda, that's burning. Okay, so I'll close with one question. So you're a photographer in Spain. They didn't like the movie, and why was that? And they're Colombian.
um so I didn't go into depth with her about it because she was telling her, I said I worked for Disney, and then everything came out with Encanto. it just like it just like wasn't expecting. I wasn't prepared for the conversation because I hadn't even watched the movie yet. But for her perspective was she felt like Colombia wasn't well represented, and they took different parts of Colombia, and they didn't stick to like one section of Colombia, and she felt like it was so there were so many different parts that she didn't couldn't tell like what the storyline. I think she was focused on the details of the actual like the look and feel versus the storyline. Because if you look at the look and feel, it actually is really representative. I think it's 1899. It's for the Thousand Year War, so it'd have to be between 1899 1902. So it's a period piece. It's in a different era. And then, but they still took in the times from like the new culture and they mixed it in with the old and in different parts, from my understanding. So she didn't like the way they combined everything. She felt like it was mixing the meanings because they took too many different sections or different parts of Colombia,
I
and they
wonder
made it like a
too,
hodgepodge of stuff.
I wonder too, where exactly from Colombia that she's from, because I know, so Cartagena, Colombia, is the most diverse city, as I understand it, in Colombia. And it's got Arab people, it's got a lot of African diaspora there. It's got a lot of multi ethnic people, indigenous people, Spanish descent, European descent. So to me, Encanto was very much, it was literally exactly how Cartagena looks, even now, right? And you're right, it was a period piece. And I don't think I saw
Hmm.
any water in Encanto, and Cartagena is on the coast, but so it's very much a coastal
Yeah.
type of atmosphere. But when you go to other places in Colombia, you don't see that, right? Even in Medellin, where you are, or Bogota, even more so, even less so. You don't see that type of diversity unless you go to a specific place. So I could see someone thinking, "Oh, they pulled all these different things," but if you go to Cartagena, that's literally just life.
Hmm.
So interesting, interesting.
I think everyone's going to have their opinions,
I'm sure. I'm
regardless, good
sure.
or bad,
Well, and I
for
see
it.
that too. I see that because of, we're Negra como soy, right? And for me, this is part of my personal experience at all times, right? That is not what Latin looks like for us, right? Or this is
Mhm.
not what I'm used to. However, there are parts of this culture that are exactly that. And we also talk about what does it look like, and I mentioned it earlier today, to understand outside of what we've been told or what we think or who we are. I know it's something I try to stay open to all the time because there's always a story that we haven't heard. There's always someone who's different that doesn't fit our perception. And
Yeah.
how are we able to relate to those people and accept who they are without giving our impression of who we think they should be?
Agreed.
So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Que
it's been
tenga
fun.
un buen día. Adiós.
Ciao.
Adios. Adios.
Adios.